Well, hello everybody. It's 2100 hours on Sunday, the 3rd of May, in the year of our Lord 2026. Speaking medieval, I don't know about that. Hopefully somebody shows up. If not, I'll be talking to myself, which I do a lot anyway. So here we are in the wilds of the Florida jungle. It's been a very hot and muggy day today, and everything is going okay. Um, On a sad note, we recently lost one of our kitties. Simon passed last week, and he was one of our rescues from down here. He got some seriously nasty kidney problems, and he was beyond saving, so we had to do the merciful thing, and it hit us quite hard, but we're getting over through it. We still miss him, and that's all we know about that. So that being said, here we are, and nobody showed up yet. So let's see. What can we do? I had this whole thing. Nobody's here yet, so I don't know what to say. Um, oh, on my subscribers, somehow in the last 2 days, I picked up a little over 1,000 more subscribers. I don't know what I did. I don't know what's going on with YouTube or whatever. It just showed up. So I guess that's a good thing because I put you on close to 2,000. And I don't know what that does for whatever that algorithm is, but that's where we're at. I need to figure out how to get a few more and how to get some people to hit this like button and the subscribe button. But oh, hey Jack, thanks for um, popping in. Yeah, he was a character. He was totally adored with my wife. This is not the first time he had that problem. We did manage to save him the first time, but this time it was just too far gone before we got to it. But it happens, that's the price you pay for unconditional love. But saying about the subscribers, but other than that, uh, I have no idea. I mean, I'm so new to this YouTube thing. I've supposedly been on this for a year now. I still don't know what I'm doing. Um, Work wise, things have slowed down a bit due to health concerns of my wife, and taking care of that. As far as what's going on in the studio, I am deep up to my elbows, heading up to my neck in this Woots section. We are looking deeply into that. I am trying to word everything to where it actually forms a coherent and it can actually walk people through it. There is a lot of technical, uh, precise, and downright nerve wracking processes as far as temperatures and alloy content on the melt, as temperatures and alloy content on the melt, that we found that if you don't follow them pretty damn close, you're not going to get any kind of results that you would wish. But then again, it's like I've always said, experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. But it's going to be an interesting book. I've got it right here on these two little drivers. I've also got my working drive around here somewhere. Here's a working drive right here. Those are two backups. But it's going to be a big book. I'm into areas where nobody else has really gotten into. A lot more into the Japanese stuff, which I did 125 of those damn things, and I don't want to look at a Japanese sword, not for a long, long time. And I really don't care for them, but I had to do them for more pattern welding stuff, more fun stuff like casting fittings and casting your own bar stock and all sorts of good things you should know. If anybody shows up and has a question, please just pick on him because you're talking to my. Um, on the knife front, not much going on in the industry outside of that one company going out of business with their, I guess, telling people they were using the wrong alloys when they were using something else. Mike always played a little fast and loose. for all the years I've known him. I knew him when he built Sword for Bellon in Southern California with Leslie Estes when Jody Sampson was grinding their blades for him. He was over in North Hollywood at Old Man Cooper's shop, him and Alex Collins. Boy, those two were real characters. Jody was an amazing artist. The guy sweated talent. He was actually, I had a couple pieces of his on my first book. In fact, he's on the back cover. The first book with, he's on the back cover, is he? A couple on here. I don't want to get it out. But he's also in my fitting section in Lost Wax Casting. When he passed, it was a total shock. I've lost so many friends in the last year. I mean, with Ed Fowler going over now. Ed Fowler, he was a real rascal. He was a scoundrel. Controversial doesn't even get close to him. I mean, we sat down many times at breakfast at these shows. We'd be together, and we'd sit down there and we'd have, huevos rancheros or chicken fried steak and eggs. We get into some really deep metallurgical discussions on heat treating. He was a character. He was just as cut as dry as I was. Opinionated, he was more opinionated than I was, if you can think of that. But he was a master smith, and he did contribute a lot to this industry, and he is missed. Same with Alex Collins. AJ Collins. He had KKK, King Cutter Knives, KKK. That was an inside joke, because he was one of our darker skinned brethren, and he was a real hoot. He and Jody would get going, and I'd have to go to the bathroom. I was laughing so hard with those two. Of course, Jody being the stereotypical temperamental artist. I remember when he had that accident and that spilling that wax pot all over him. That was horrible. Oh man, he was just. I felt so sorry for that poor bastard. But he came back from it, and after I got him that gig up there with Howard Waddell at Albion, he finally got some good stuff going, and then he just laid down with work for a break and passed on. And God rest his soul. He's probably up there looking down, laughing and pointing at me. Him and Alex and Bob Agnath, and a couple of my friends. Bob Loveless, the same thing. He was another curmudgeon. Very, very cut and dried man too. He was an amazing artist, amazing craftsman. But, what else? Oh, on the steel and the roots thing. As I mentioned that before, been having a lot of fun with that. Been working on it. I'll be doing a couple of pieces. I finished a couple of pieces the other night. I got to put them on my website. As I said, research is ongoing on that. Seems like every piece is different. It works a lot like the old Vasco Pacific Vascoware, but with worse attitude. Very red hard. Can also be red short. It can crack. It can crumble. It can cause you all kinds of heartache. It can cause you all kinds of problems. But that's the way the material is. If you look through the writings, through history, as far as the so-called Western records on it, they said it was very hard to work. European smiths worked at a much higher temperature than boots could tolerate. True, it's a crucible steel, and it was melted at this high temperature, but it was very red short. And as long as you stayed within the working ranges, you're okay. But you get too hot, it cracks and crumbles. You get too cold, it just cracks and shatters. You only have a couple hundred degrees working range, and you got to make sure that at least I found, that hydraulic press don't do well with this material. You need the impact that goes through the material. The pressure itself, yeah, you can get tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of pressure, but there's no impact to it. There's no shock. And I'm finding that shock is important. Now you can still do some work with hydraulic press, but anything big that you want to draw down, I would refrain from a hydraulic press. There's no impact. A drop hammer, a power hammer, or what do you want to call them, trip hammers, that impact, or even a heavy sledge with a strike plate on a striking anvil with a couple of strikers, with 8 or 10 pound sledges hitting it. That would be ideal, because that was traditional. You know, Your these is funny now, but I do believe it is in the beginning of the movie. Your these is funny now, but I do believe it is in the beginning of the new Hobbit movie. Peter Jackson came up with. There's actually a decent actors dressed as dwarves doing like a 5 or 6 man hammer team. I don't know if this was CGI or what, but they really had it down. I mean, they're really working on it. This boom, 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 boom. Very well done. Back when I was doing my lecture series, I went down to a trade school down in, I think, South Carolina. Was it North Carolina? South Carolina. And we had a 4-man striking team working on a billet. And we were seeing out. I was working on the railroad, and we were going pretty good there, But then steel got cold, and you have to heat it up, and you lose all your rhythm. But it's amazing what you can do with just a sledgehammer, like 4 or 5 dedicated, motivated people. That's the old way of doing it before they came up with mechanical hammers. And mechanical hammers go way back. I mean, the Egyptians, the ancient Egyptians, were using them for doing various things, mostly threshing grain. There are illustrations on the side of threshing grain. There are illustrations on the side of tombs of them doing that. There's also some illustration of them using metalworking for doing that. The same with water-powered wheels, grinding wheels, etc., etc. Matter of fact, they're still using, some places still use the old jackline wheels. In some places in Germany and some of the older cutlery firms. Grinding on a sandstone wheel is not something I would like to do, because silicosis, and there's an old saying that the old grinder was like 35 years old, and he was an old bird ready to fall off his perch, and you only have one set of lungs, and your lungs are shot, you're pretty much shot. Let's see. It might. Would you have something to do with getting the crystal structure to move past each other? It might, because the impact will travel down through the work from the top down to the bottom, hit the anvil, and then it sinks in from there, and you do get some rebound on it. But I think the impact does have a tendency. It will fracture the structure if you hit hard enough and you reduce it enough. A reduction of 50% is really needed in order to get any kind of crystalline structure fracturing reduction. But then again, once you normalize, it will come back to normal anyway, and then you go back to square one and back to resets to zero, which means every time you normalize it, you have to reduce another 50% in order to get any additional reduction in grain. But that's the way the creature is. This is what's really neat about metalworking. There's really no reliable computer model that can be came up with, can be fabricated or developed, that can actually give you the exact effect that some things do. You get close, but you really don't get it all the way. So metallurgy is one of those things. And the nice thing about metallurgy is, especially on this, there's really hasn't been that much research into this up until about maybe 15 years ago, where Al Pendre and Oliver Colvin did their little thing with Woods, and they published that paper, but they left out a couple of things on purpose, and I'm not too keen about that. But I can understand why they did it. I don't agree with it. I can understand why, but if you're going to do something, publish the entire paper and publish the information. Don't put out any misinformation out there, because that just makes everybody look bad. And just because somebody reads something about how to do it doesn't mean everybody and their brother is going to run out and do it that day. But as I said before, if you get somebody, 2 or 3 guys that are the know all be all on anything, and they keep everything to themselves, then everything just sort of like stagnates. You got to get new people with new ideas. I say new eyes to look at problems or the processes. I found this out back when I was doing all that research back in the 1980s, 1990s on pattern welding, um, especially reproducing some of the older um, European, Northern European, Central European, Scandinavian methods of blade construction coming out of Germany, France, uh, Finland, a few other places, Sweden, um, that there's like 8 or 10 different ways to come up with the same basic finished product. Case in point, twisted patterns. There's only so many ways you can twist a blade. It's a huge number, but it's still finite. And sometimes you can actually get a process that looks like it was twisted or looks like it was material manipulated when it was actually surface manipulated, which can really throw a wrench into you trying to figure out how these things were done. Um, I figured out a few places that people have wrote papers of saying this works, but that's not what they're thinking. That was my opinion, and it was like one of those epiphanies that you get going, why? Wow. It's like I was going to do an argument, oh God, 25 years ago with the archaeologist. I'm saying the Romans pattern welded. And they go, no, they didn't. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Yes, they did. Pattern welding is one step from basically making shear steel. And they found a Pugio blade with a actual pattern, not piling a material, but actual patterns. And that's sort of like, vindicated me. But just because they haven't found it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It doesn't mean they haven't found it yet. Um, there's so much things you can do, so many different ways you can do it. Um, we are in a metal-rich society. We're very fortunate that people like me that want to do this do not have to make their own steel. You can go out there and buy a piece of steel for a few dollars that would rival anything made 500 years ago by anybody. Good piece of 1095 or a good piece of 1060, or even the old 5160, also known as OCS, Oak Shelby Spring steel, that low chrome stuff, tougher than a 50-cent steak. Makes a great sword, makes a decent knife. A lot of swordsmiths back then would kill for a steel like that. Of course, we went back in time with a couple of tons of that, you'd probably be burned as a wizard. So much for your career. But not having to make your own steel, and we can thank the automotive industry standardization of alloys, being that when you have to have a consistent product, not for hundreds, but for thousands and tens of thousands of pieces, that have to be from piece 1 to piece number 10,001, all the same parameters of performance and durability. That's how the ASAE, the American Society of Automotive Engineers, came in, and the National Iron and Steel Institute came out with the standardization of alloy numbers and letter series that allow you to take a piece of 1060 from this manufacturer here and 1060 from this other manufacturer there. It's the same steel. If it says 1060, it's the same steel. There might be slight variations in carbon content or manganese or other things, but it still be 1060. The same with 5160 or A2 or D2 or M2 or L6, S7, S2. It's an alloy that is an alloy that is an alloy that's pretty much the same all the way across the board, no matter which mill made it. Be that being said, I always like, if possible, to get melt specs on the steels I buy, just so I know what's in it to make sure that if anything goes wrong, I can figure out what went wrong. Because sometimes, let me get some water, I'm drying out. Sometimes, no matter what you do, pieces just go south on you. Whether you did it, whether nobody did it, whether it was bad rolling at the mill. I've had a couple of bars over the years that were rolled wrong, that after heat treating, a blade split right dead center, right at the middle. Had two half blades. It's like that split right there. Very, very interesting to happen. I've also had pits in the melt, and they are very frustrating. I just had one on that woods piece I did the other day. I did on a live in stock video I did last night. I had a little belt knife that had graphite string on one side. Looks like hell, but it's just cosmetic. There's nothing structural to it because it doesn't go through the side. You can see where the graphite just out, which happens. I've seen older pieces of wood material that had the same inclusions. It just happens during the melt and it gets forged out from there. I've also seen the same thing, graphite stringers, carbon stringers in rolled steel, especially 5160. That has a tendency to get real bad on that. Not so much 10 series. Your 52 series can also do it, but not as bad as a 5160. That's notorious for bad rolling for some reason. I don't know why. Most problems I have is 5160. But then again, every now and then, I did get a piece of 01 that would have a little orange peel on the surface, which is nothing really bad. It just doesn't look that great, especially if you're trying to put in a mirror polish on it and just can't quite get it because you get that little ripple effect in there, which just happens in the steel. Can't do anything about it once you get to that point. But other than that, that's all on that part of the steel on the woods. Like I said, it's very, very interesting material to work with. I'm still learning a lot. We are all learning a lot on this. I can see where they thought it was a super steel and sell your soul to the devil, because stuff does cut. It does cut, really, and it is a bugger to work with. They are saying that James Black, the man that supposedly made the original quote-unquote Bowie knife for Jim and Resin Bowie's, Jim Resin Bowie out of Arkansas, he used crucible steel in that one, and supposedly, according to legend, or just somebody spinning tall tales, he actually put a piece of meteorite in that blade, which was supposedly immortalized in that, what was the name of that movie with Alan Ladd? Iron Mistress, where he says, for better or worse, got a piece of heaven or hell in it, or something like that. That was a funny movie to watch, boy. That knife was like a 2x4, about that wide and about that long. A short sword. But we really don't know what the original knife looked like. I mean, the stuff that Resin had made later on, they were just basically big butcher knives. And if you read the description of the knife, that's what they described as a large butcher knife, whether it had a guard on it or not. We don't know. They don't know what happened to the original. I don't know if he brought it with him after he got chopped up and shot at that sandbar fight, where he got found by Santa Anna's niece. And you can say what you want about Jim Bowie. He was a real character. He was a scoundrel, slave trader, shady bizman. But he wasn't any better or worse than anybody else that period of time. But he was very colorful, and he was a tough man. I mean, he got shot once and had a sword through his chest, and he still killed the man that did it. That's a tough man. He's like right after Richard Burton, not the actor, but the explorer, the guy that went to Headwaters of the Nile. Anybody take an acid guy through the face, that's a tough man. I don't make him like that anymore. But I don't know if he brought the knife with him when they picked him up. And he later married into Santa Anna. He married into Mexican nobility. Santa Anna was I believe his uncle. That's why I do believe they wanted to take him alive, but he had other plans. But here again, we really don't know what happened to anybody there. outside of the few people that actually survived, being a couple of slaves, I think 2 or 3 wives were there that they let go. But it was a big, ugly mess there. But he's into history. He's into mythology. He's into the hierarchy of American history. Him and Davy Crockett and Travis and Dickerson and everybody else that that made a stand there. It's been a hell of a fight. That was back when fights were considered a fight, and they didn't call in airstrikes because they didn't have any airstrikes. But hand-to-hand combat, he made his name with that. A knife fight is not something you want to get involved with. I've been in my fair share of them, and I got the scars to prove it. And the first law you're going to get, about knife fighting is you're going to get cut. And I've been cut, I've been shot, and I take being shot over being cut any day. Because boy, cut hurts. It hurts from the start. Getting shot doesn't really hurt that much to begin with. It does later, but boy, not when it first happens. Old man feels like hit by a baseball, but there's really no pain other than impact. But getting cut, and it's bleeding all over. Oh my God, the mess. But that was back in the days of yore, where man against man, 3 feet apart. Let God judge the victor. But anyway, I digress. Anything else in the knife making community here that we should know about? But anyway, I digress. Anything else in the knife making community here that we should know about? I really don't know. And it looks like I'm still the only one here. I'm gonna get a few more minutes. Then I show up. Maybe I came on too late. Maybe I didn't leave enough pre-warning, heads up time between the announcement I'm going to be doing it and now. I'll try to make it a couple more days in advance. Let's say put out on Thursday instead of Saturday or Friday or whatever day I did put it out on. I really don't know. Things have been running together here. Things moving quite fast with my wife, and hopefully we can get these problems solved with her shortly. I'm very worried about that, but life is as it is. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and end this. Thank you. Go ahead and send me into it. You have a good week as well. My wife's procedure is scheduled for later on this month in about 2 weeks or so. I don't have the exact date. We have a tentative date, but don't have the exact date yet. Hopefully it goes well. I hope so, because I don't know what to do about it. Anyway, everybody have a nice evening. Thank you so much. I am surprised that my little ham cat Stewie hasn't showed up, but I fed him right before he started this, so I bought him off. Mercenary little snot. Anyway, have a nice evening. Soul Flyer, would you consider doing a recipe video on your roots making an upcoming video? If I had somebody that would come out and videotape it, I would. I'll see what I can do about charging a crucible, but it would be easier if I had somebody videotaping over to one side instead of me having to work around the camera like I'm doing now. But that's a good idea. I was thinking about doing that. Once things get a little bit more settled, and my evil minions are right now in the beginning of the show. Minions are right now in the beginning of the show season. All the Renaissance fairs are going, so I've got to get off my keister and start, clambering out the normal stuff that I do to send out to my minions, so I can get some filthy lucre. Which, by the way, I'm having that sale on my website, www.atar.com, on pieces I do have in stock. But yes, I would do that. I do think that would be kind of interesting to watch because I do mine differently, and I will actually talk while I'm doing it, giving amounts and percentages and parts and pieces and everything else. It's not a difficult thing to do. It is very precise because everything's got to be weighed within, a very narrow range of tolerances. And after that, it's just time in the furnace. I do have to get another pyrometer because for some reason the one I have, I've burned through 2 already, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong with them. But I will be doing that in the future. That's a good suggestion, and I will definitely take that as a thing to do in the future. Right now, the next ones I think will be doing blind threaded butt caps, butt plates, where you can take a plate of 1/8 inch or 3/16 inch bronze or brass, whatever, and put a threading extension on there, and so you can thread it onto the butt. So you don't have that little castle nut like I have here. That'd just be flat across. And here's one of the Woots knives right there. This one just sold on the website. I got to ship this out to the gentleman that bought it. They're a lot of fun to make. This is a very, very light hand knife. But yeah, I can do that. Thanks for the suggestion. I really appreciate it. So, well, anyway, everybody, I'm going to sign off for now. I'm going to go check on the crew, make sure everybody's okay. I'll get myself some more to drink and stay hydrated. And everybody have a wonderful evening. Thank you for dropping by. Hopefully next week's will be better. On my other discussion, my gun gab, that will be going on Wednesday, the 6th at about between 2000 hours, 8 p.m. That'll be gun gab, and we'll be discussing stuff like that. A lot of things will be moving as far as firearms ownership and the way laws are going. There are several major cases up for review for the Supreme Court as far as that goes, and I'm keeping an eye on those because I have a rather large firearms collection. That's really fun pieces in there too. Some rare ones and some not so rare ones, and some everything from single shot black powder rifles up to sophisticated select fire weapons. That's one thing about being in Florida. You can actually own the fun stuff as long as you got the paperwork. So anyway, have a nice evening. Thank you so much for your time. May the wise Lord bless and keep you all. And good night, everybody.